What's up, y'all? It's November 1st, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. This is our main side. There are 4 sides to In The Image Clothing Company, but this is where we allow the body to work. This video will be titled, Looking Down Opposes Bad Posture. Now, we put quotes around bad posture because posture is a myth. In a sense and in a way, the way that we describe it and discuss it, what we do on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here, we allow the human body to work. We discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth. We come at the body through clothing, the only thing physically placed on us, truly the only fix to human beings' physical problems. The human body has a center line. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw. The jaw stabilizes the entire body. We have feet that grip arches inward from our foundation, opposing the center line and keeping us vertical on Earth's gravity. Earth has a center of gravity that it pulls down on everything with. And musculature in the body connects from the outside of the shoulder into the sternum in the front and the center on both sides, opposing the center line. And from the outside of the shoulder to the spine in the rear on both sides, opposing the center line. So we give free modifications in clothing. We talk about eating, sleeping, standing, walking, breathing, sitting, hydration. Everything, though, as we are human beings on this earth, just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, designed in the image of Jesus Christ, In The Image Clothing Company, our 5-word name as a whole. There's only one way the human body could ever work. It can only ever work activated as a whole. Everything's there. Everything has a role to play. So that's a lot of what we do on this main side, one of the 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company. We'll always have good clothing to allow the body to work, but I give so many free modifications. Our clothing just has to stay centered, fit correct, where I talk about when I discuss where clothing sits, and be made from ideally 100% natural materials. All musculature in the body only contracts or gets shorter to work. There's just opposing muscles to each function. There's a neutral position to everything in the body. Every joint, every position of anything that could ever have motion. There's internal rotation and external rotation from a neutral in all the ways that there are in the body, from the hand to the shoulder, from the foot to the hip, from the hand to the elbow, and from the foot to the knee. Okay, there's rotations, and there's only a neutral. Neutral, natural, and normal are synonyms within the human body's functioning. Okay, so we allow the body to work because it's actually physically impossible to train the human being. I know that people tell you otherwise, but there is only a neutral to everything. It's legitimately, actually, truly, physically impossible to ever get our bodies to do anything. So that's why there's the quotes, okay? In the title of this video, Looking Down Opposes, in a good way, quote, bad posture, unquote. Because there's no such thing as posture. We have a body given to us by God, designed in the image of God, with only one way it could ever work, and it's placed on Earth with this universal law called gravity that, again, we didn't decide. We can't have a say over it. God designed the Earth, He designed the human being and all the things on it, and there's gravity. Our bodies would just stay as vertical as they can on Earth's gravity while still having a slight bend in everything, just to be slightly in the range of motion, okay, in all the joints throughout the whole body, from the toes up to the tip of the head and out to the tips of the fingers, so that the musculature can work. If our bones are locked out, we can't really use our musculature at complete lockout of joints. But if we can get into a little bit of range of motion, right? The body's just a lever system. It's a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, Earth. In a little bit of a range of motion, meaning slightly bent, to where we're not so vertical that we can't move, but just very slightly bent, activated as a whole. That's how the body works, with everything in its neutral position on Earth's gravity. okay? We've got a lot of videos talking about the neutral positions of the body, right? Keeping elbows at the natural waist, a video under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. The natural scapula position, the big bones on our upper back. There's only one natural, neutral, or normal position for the scapulas, which are the shoulders. And this is how everything in the body is. We've got a lot of videos. Any of them that you could find them under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company if you'd like to know about the anatomy of the human body, how it actually works, truly, no opinion, no possible dispute, the way that I discuss things, because I discuss things very thoroughly, okay? And so this is the point, is looking down on one foot there, but opposes bad posture. When we have, quote, bad posture, unquote, which again, there really is no way to train posture. It's physically impossible because there's only neutral positions to things. Everything in the body, truly. Despite what anybody could ever try to get you to believe, if the body was never altered by anything, and what's physically placed on it? Clothing, right? We talk about the locations for the sake of the angles and the sizing of where clothing sits. Nothing to do with fashion. In the Image Clothing Company, not at all. It's about the anatomy and functionality of the human body and allowing it to work. So with our posture, quote unquote posture, we need to have everything just residing in its neutral positions. Elbows resting at the sides, allowing the arms to dangle with the wrist neutral, feet arches gripped, lower legs neutral, neutral through the pelvis, neutral through the spine, neutral in the position of the jaw, which stabilizes the entire body, like I talk about when I talk about the center line of the body and how the jaw stabilizes the whole body. Okay, like keeping collars centered, what we do for human beings, but as well on another fourth of us in the Image Clothing Company poodles, where we specialize in purebred poodles, but give information that applies to all dogs as well. Keeping collars centered is a huge thing, you know, for human beings and dogs. The jaw is the big point with that, stabilizing the entire body, with, you know, why I was discussing it right there. And really the jaw, when it comes to looking down, opposing bad posture, okay? I'm not gonna say quote unquote each time that I say bad posture in this, if I say it any more times within this, but just know there's no such thing as posture. It's I mean, physics-wise, it's impossible for there to be something to train called posture. But what we do have is Earth's gravity. And what we need is to be as vertical as we can without trying to force our bodies to be stiff as a board. Just relaxed, vertical on Earth's gravity, okay? Neutral in everything in the body. And where this comes from with the idea of looking down is our spine comes up and meets at the base of our skull, okay? This is where it pivots. When we're looking either up or down, it's the spine pivoting at the base of the skull, okay? My spine doesn't have to move, really, to look up or down, because just where the vertebrae of the spine come and meet the base of the skull right here, it's just pivoting up or down. But what happens is we need to be able to look down to keep our spine vertical, okay? This is my whole spine staying neutral while I take my head and pivot on the location of the base of the skull where it meets the very top of the spine to look down. So my spine doesn't actually move when I look down. Not really. But what needs to happen is I need to be able to get my entire skull to be able to pivot on the top of the spine while leaving everything else down to my fingertips and down to the tip of my toes in their neutral position, okay? What we think of when we think of bad posture, okay, again, I'm not gonna put the quotes, but just there's no such thing as posture, truly. But we think of what people say as rounded forward shoulders. And people often say that your shoulders are coming in. What's really happening though, rotation-wise, is external rotation, okay? The shoulders only ever can possibly mechanically work with the rest of the body behind the head, okay? They connect. You can see this muscle here. The upper trapezius, it connects to the very base of the rear of the skull, along the spine of the neck, the cervical spine, and to the top and rear of the shoulder. That's why we always show under In the Image Clothing Company where clothing sits, the top seams of our shoulders sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because our shoulders follow shoulder seams and they only ever work behind our head, just because that's where the end points of the musculature that just pull together insert. The very base of the rear of the skull and the cervical spine, or in other words, the spine of the neck. And that, the very base of the rear of the skull, where this upper trapezius muscle that you can see the outline of on me here inserts into, is exactly where we pivot at the very top of the spine when we look up or down, okay? So, we can keep our entire body neutral. And we can look down all the way, or we can look up all the way. Full range of motion. But when we think of bad posture, this forward position, the shoulders coming forward are pulling on the musculature that connects to the very rear of the body, along the spine with what we mentioned, the upper trapezius, but the mid trapezius and the lower trapezius as well. And the muscles connecting to the back of our body connect to the spine, which is the very farthest rear of the body. And if our shoulders come rounding forward, then we can't look down. Often people think when you have this bad posture, you need to lift your chin up, right? Lift your head, lift your chin up, put your chin in the air, they say, for good posture. That is false. We have to look at the body as a whole, stemming from the feet and the fingertips, keeping everything in their neutral position, and coming up to the top of the spine where we'd pivot the head if we're talking about looking up or looking down. Because what people are actually doing when they're in this bad posture positioning is they're chronically, meaning just constantly, life-lasting, kind of stuck in a position of looking. Watch where the angle of my head pivots. It's up, right? Bad posture, we're actually looking up. If I keep my head at the position of pivot that it would be in rounded shoulders forward, which is actually rotated external, because remember, the upper arm has its own rotations and the forearm does as well. So if our hands are in, well, our upper arm is probably still externally rotated up here at the shoulder capsule, okay? Because that's just how that would happen to get you into this forward shoulder position, is you'd be external in the actual shoulder joint, because the musculature that internally rotates the shoulders or pulls the thumbs toward the center of the body when the elbows are locked out, right? The hand is essentially the shoulder. That would pull the body back here, vertical, neutral, perpendicular, if you will, on Earth's gravity, okay? If we had good internal rotation. And now we're looking neutral here. I don't want to make this too deeply explained, but this is good. I'll just explain it how I explain it in this. This is good. Because forward posture is an external rotation of the shoulder capsule. And now the musculature is being pulled on forward, and you're actually looking with your head up. Okay. So if I take my whole body besides the angle of my head and put it neutral, my head will do this. Now my body is neutral from the base of my skull down, but the position my skull was actually in this bad posture, was looking up. See what I mean? Well, I adjusted my skull there just because it's very uncomfortable to try to do, be in this bad posture position. It hurts. It's putting a lot of stress on the body, and gravity is pulling on you in a position that's not where your feet are underneath your center of gravity, where things would just hang down at your sides, like your arms, and just stacked over Earth's center of gravity. Okay, so looking down actually opposes bad posture. Okay, because if I'm here in this bad posture position and I try to lift my chin to stand up straight, well, that's not going to work. My jaw stabilizing my entire body, notice it's harder to speak like that, is being pulled open. If I try to lift my chin, okay, we actually tuck the chin, pivoting at the base of the skull where the spine comes up and meets the skull, down, okay? And that's how we get our spine neutral or vertical or perpendicular with Earth's gravity, okay? This is the surface of the Earth, horizontal. This is our body, vertical. That's a perpendicular angle rather than a parallel angle, okay? That comes from looking down. If you're in life like this, looking what you think is forward, but your body is out of its only neutral through the rest of it, then we don't focus on the position of the shoulders or the position of the head and trying to look up. You focus on your feet, keeping them gripped, neutral, straight forward from those pinky toes. Then from there, we can have our knees at their neutral amount of bend. Coming up, we can have our pelvis in its neutral position. We can have our spine in its neutral position. And since the spine is the same from the base of the spine at our pelvis or hips up to the base of our skull, it'll have to either snake front to back excessively if we've got bends throughout the body, more than just their neutral vertical position, or it will be able to be very nice and vertical and neutral, like I was saying at the beginning, with just a slight bend and everything to keep musculature activated through the body. Vertical, perpendicular on Earth's gravity, okay? This is good posture because I'm actually looking down, okay? So this is what we can look at, is that, I guess. Watch my spine go straight, okay? When I look down all the way, it'll straighten my spine as straight vertical as it could get. Well, even this. Here, watch if I just turn. Look how straight my spine is. But if I look up, there'd have to be a curve in my spine, okay? But it starts at the feet and through the whole body, everything always only residing in its neutral positions. Yeah, because that's what you also hear, people say to lift the chin, but they also say to tuck the jaw. Well, those are two opposite things. To try to get good posture, Well, lifting your chin will actually put your body out of its only neutral position. Tucking the jaw will keep you more vertical. Okay, so we talk about a lot of things because in order to look down, we have to have unaltered ears. The importance of even ears. A video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. We've got a lot of things that often get placed in human beings' ears nowadays that just didn't even exist decades ago as of today's date and ever before then. If we alter the cartilage or the structure and shape of our ears, then the rear of our lower jawbone, which has to tuck to get our bodies to look down, to get our bodies vertical and neutral on Earth's gravity, won't have this position be able to happen. If there's alteration to the cartilage of the ear, well, the ear is just a hole between the rear of the lower jawbone and then the skull back here, where these muscles insert, the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Okay, the importance of even sternocleidomastoid insertions, a video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. To look down, our jawbone, the rear of the lower jaw, comes back right to this muscle of the sternocleidomastoid, and that needs to all be able to be very nice and tucked, kind of behind you, and very vertical to look down, because most people aren't ever looking down. By the way, there's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, another one of our forwards where we have deep discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, titled Being Behind Yourself. And that's kind of how it feels when your body's in what we could call good posture, just a vertical position, neutrally stacked, everything activated, slightly bent into its range of motion, just neutral throughout the whole body, just how it would work if it was never altered by anything. It kind of feels like you're behind yourself, because the shoulders only ever work behind the head. You can just see the actual musculature on me. That's just where it connects, the shoulder to the body, where the functionality would be able to work. And the chin tucks back, the pelvis tucks underneath us, so it's vertical rather than being anteriorly rotated or tipping forward. Okay. Stemming from the feet, it's kind of like we're behind ourselves when we're vertical. That's how it feels, especially at first. If you get out of patterning, which is what we do, right? We get out of chronic patterning and scar tissue under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. Oversized clothing, imbalances in clothing, shoelaces, drawstrings, any ropes introduced to the body gets us into these chronic patterns, and scar tissue gets built up in the body. And that's really what we do, is show how to allow the body to work and get out of these things. You know, free modifications in clothing, and our clothing will always be good. Dog products, right, as well, on In The Image Clothing Company poodles. To just allow a neutral position in the whole body. And neutral implies that we can tuck the jaw or look down, as well as lift the chin. Pivoting at the base of the skull and the top of the spine. So here's the big thing with looking down, is a lot of times people that have bad posture, what we could call that, are usually doing things down in life, like this, down below them, and they're not standing upright. Okay. But what they're doing is looking with their head positioning upward, or pivoting their head up, looking up, as opposed to looking down. Because this is the big thing. In order to actually look down, we have to tuck our chin back. I talked about what's happening here behind the rear of the lower jaw pretty thoroughly. But behind us, one of the two prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company to not alter the body is removing all tags from clothing, something that didn't even exist just decades ago before today's date. A tag placed in the rear of our collar of our top right on our spine actually takes our jaw, because of the gap that the tag causes behind our spine here, and pushes our jaw forward, and our head looks, in a sense, or tilts up, okay? Just picture a gap between my actual spine and the rear of my collar that's being caused by not this animal that's on my shoulder here, but a tag. Can you go somewhere else, please, buddy? Between the collar and the spine, okay? A gap. Now your jaw gets pushed forward and you're looking essentially with your head position up, okay? So now you're doing things like this in life with bad posture, but you're already looking up. Even though your body's kind of down, we need to actually look with our head positioning down to get our spine vertical. If you can see that, and you can see that, that's awesome. That's a great discussion. Shout out to the little insect that landed on my shoulder. Okay, so there you go. Looking down opposes bad posture. But there's a lot of things that come with this, because the importance of even eyebrows, a video under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. What happens is the same skin on all the body is the same skin on all of the body. So the skin of your eyebrows with all this motion here is the same skin as the rear of the base of the skull, where we pivot at the top of the spine, looking up and or down. So if we have scar tissue that gets built up on our eyebrows and we're in a position where we can't raise our eyebrows like this to look down, just because all the skin across the whole head with all the musculature on the scalp, which is the skin between the, you know, where your hair is in on your head and your actual skull of your head, there's little muscles all across the skull, and the ears can move, the eyebrows can move, all the face can move musculature wise. On the exterior of our actual skull bone, that needs to happen on the front in order for the rear to have motion as well, okay? It would actually be more like this. You'd be more squinting down with your head looking up, and you'd be able to lift your eyebrows with your head looking down, in a sense. Yeah, okay. I want to show it like this. I was talking to my mom actually about a half an hour before now. Well, give or take, an hour before now maybe. And I talked about this surprised look. You know, if somebody surprises you and you're like this, you put your hands up and internally rotated, and your eyebrows rise and your chin tucks, you're looking down. Okay? Notice all the motion on the front of the face, so the rear of the head can have motion as well. Looking down, now you're vertical. Okay? Or like hands up, surrendered kind of position. Okay? We have to look down to be able to do this. Get our hands up like this, internally rotated, tuck the chin back, and pivot the head at the base of the skull or the top of the spine down. Okay? And if we're stuck in external rotation at the shoulder capsule, you'll never look down, just because, like I was showing, the musculature is just pulled on here that connects from the outside of the shoulder, the top / rear of it, up to the spine in the very rear, and the base of the skull right off to the spine in the rear of the head. Okay? All that needs to be clear back here, internally rotated, and then we can look down, and now look how vertical my spine is. Okay? So, a lot of it's the eyebrows, a lot of it's the nose, a lot of it's the ears. when we talk about where bad posture comes from, a lot of it's in the face because of, look at what I'm doing here. If I wasn't squinting, there'd be too much light to be comfortably in my eyes right now with the location of the sun where I'm at. And there's a lot of musculature activating here in the eye area. And if I have anything causing my body to actually have my head in a position, rotation-wise, up or down, where I'm looking up, then I don't have much motion in my eyebrows because the whole head is wrapped with skin and the eyebrows need to be able to move, but that means the whole head has to move because the skin that has, I mean, you've got like multiple inches here that are going up and down. All of this is going into moving the eyebrows up and down is what I mean. You know, 3-4 inches probably here on the forehead. And it's kind of moving around our whole skull. As we move our head around left to right, up and down, the skin has to be able to move and accommodate around the scalp. Well, the scalp is the skin, but around the skull of our head. Okay, so to look down, we just need motion in everything. And to look up, you're actually in a dropped position because there's no range of motion. Where it's pivoting here at the base of the skull or the top of the spine, here, you're just kind of hanging with gravity forward. The spine's excessively curved and you're looking up, okay? So we need to look down. There's a lot of motion there in the neck, right at the base of the skull, and it just needs to be able to be there. So there's a lot of things, right? Everything from shoelaces up to drawstrings, up to shoulder seams, up to anything, right? How glasses affect body mechanics. A video under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. The importance of even nostrils. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things we talk about on the actual head of the human being, the physical skull, that go into things down at the feet. Our feet's ability to grip arches is what's determining if we can look down or not, but also if we're chronically stuck looking up from something like shoulder seams in an incorrect location, just because our shoulders follow our shoulder seams, they're just placed on us with gravity, or a tag in the rear of our collar, just altering the position of our spine's curvature just because it's physically in the way. Whatever it is, anywhere through the whole body, it can be coming from. That's the point. Either the feet or the hands. I say those two because that's the farthest out extremity from the head pivoting at the base of the skull, up or down. But those things can affect the head's ability to pivot at the base of the skull or the top of the spine, up or down. Okay, so we need to actually be looking down naturally. Well, that's what I'm doing in this video. And yes, part of that is the sun. I'm just trying to shield the sun from my eyes. But even that, I mean, whenever you're trying to shield anything from your eyes that's above your eyebrow level, you need to look down. And if you're unable to, it's just going to cause a lot of pain and fatigue and discomfort in your body just because you're looking up and trying to squint and you can't get away from it. That's what I mean. Look at my body's position here. When I'm looking up, my feet arches are collapsed, my feet point out, my pelvis is turned forward or anterior, my knees are in an unnatural position, depending on, you know, how I'd be, yeah, through the rest of my body. But traveling up to the head, to get this sun out of my eyes, and to get my body vertical on Earth's gravity, and you can hear my voice doesn't quite sound as clear like this, I need to actually tuck my chin in, pivot my head down by having room between the lower jaw bone and the rear of it, the sternocleidomastoid muscle, okay, right between there where the ear is, and really just the base of the skull. I need to have nothing on my spine up here so that I can actually get my spine back against my shirt or top collar in the rear. I need to have motion in my I heard a noise. My eyes were closed as I was saying what I was saying there. I need to have motion in my eyebrows so that I can accommodate for just the skin around my skull moving. And I need my shoulders to internally rotate, feet arches gripping, pelvis tucking, spine neutral, legs neutral, arms neutral, chin neutral. Now I'm looking down. Now I can open my eyes easier because I can drop my eyebrows down, okay, and just have motion in them is the point, because my body's neutral through the rest of it. And then now I can just look around, and this is actually a much more natural position. The other thing is, just walking around as a human being, we have to look at where we're walking. We might step on something or trip over something. And so you're not going to be looking just straight out on the horizon when you're walking. Now look at my shoulder position. When my head is up higher than it would naturally be, which is slightly down, because you're going to just look at what you're, where you're walking. And you're just looking in life, you're doing things with your hands, you need to look down at your hands. And to do so, you need to, physically pivot your head at the base of your skull down. And now you're going back, okay? Because that's what I was saying is, people, even if they're looking at something that's lower than their head level often in life, and they get into bad posture, it's not because their head is tilted down, because this is natural. My spine's still very neutral. My jaw's still neutral. My tongue's just resting. My shoulders are still neutral. Elbows are still at the natural waist. Feet arches are still gripped, because I'm actually pivoting at the base of my skull, not looking up with my head, okay? Man, I could actually talk about this fairly deeply. Looking down with our physical skull, the position of the angle, like I've been discussing in this up until right now, then allows us to look up with our eyes. Because if your head goes pivoting down, then to look at the horizon, you look with your eyeballs up. But again, you have to have motion in your eyebrows to do so, just to see up past your eyebrows. That's what I mean, the importance of even eyebrows. In the right-handed patterning we get into, in the right-handed world, people can't see up past their eyebrow because it'll get stuck down with scar tissue, okay? And we need to be able to lift our eyebrows, so when we are looking down, position of the head wise, we can look up with our eyeballs. Because in this bad posture, okay, that people get into, when they're actually looking up with the angle of their head, it's their eyeballs that are chronically looking down. So now you've just got so much tension through your neck, through your eye. Well, that's what gets people's eyebrows to be so stuck down, is because they're straining their visual system, their eyes, to try to look down with their actual eyes rather than looking down with the position of their skull, because that's mechanics of the body's skeletal system, rather than straining muscles of the eyes with your head looking up but your eyes looking down, right? Internal rotation towards the body's center line, where the strength lies in the human being. Gripped arches come inward, musculature connects to the center of the body. Internal rotation is the emphasis, because it's what ends up getting inhibited, if anything does, rotation-wise in the body, within patterning. It will come from looking with your skull down, okay? Picture a fighter like this, tucked kind of behind themselves, like I'm saying. They're essentially, with their head positioning, looking down. And now they can tuck like this, and they're inside, internal, closer to their center line. Musculature is activating. Their eyes aren't being strained, okay? Because they can look down, pivoting their head at the base of their skull and the top of their spine here, okay? centered, locked in, gripped arches, activated body throughout, neutral spine, because we're looking down. That's when we have good posture, okay? So we just have to look at the body as a whole, which is what we do under In the Image Clothing Company. As I say, don't believe me, right? When I say things like clothing is truly the only fix to human beings' physical problems, stretching is damaging the body only, right? And I give context as to why there's only a neutral to everything. It's the truth, right? But that's why I say don't believe me, just check out what we do. There's only one way the human body could ever work, okay? And I, it's not to do with me, but as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, in this for life, the reason I'm here and the way I'm able to explain things the way that I am and do is because I really understand the anatomy of the human body in depth, the actual truth of it, the actual undisputed, applying to all humans on the face of the earth, man, woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the earth, any time period to ever be. We're all just a human being designed in the image of God. There's only a neutral to everything in the body. There's only one way we can get this thing to work, and it's always the back end. Allowing the body to work, letting dogs stay natural on In the Image Clothing Company poodles, right? We didn't design it, we can't decide it. That's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast and the title. But notice when I'm looking around and when I'm making videos, even when there's sun here or not, and I am 6'2" tall, so when I'm talking to somebody, I am slightly above most people, just for the sake of discussing the angle of the pivot of my head. But regardless, just to keep the spine vertical and the whole body neutral, from the feet up, from the hands in, if you will, and from the tip of the head down, even though in this case it's not very far to the base of the skull from the tip of the head, just meaning the entire body, we have to actually be looking down to get vertical on Earth's gravity, okay? It's just the position it would have to be in mechanically for the spine to be able to be neutral. But we have to know where clothing sits as well. So check out where, we discuss where clothing sits under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. And there we go. That's what I'll discuss for this, because that was awesome. I love this. I've been thinking about this a little bit. I've thought about this for quite some time, but then I just had a conversation, like I was saying, with my mom at where I live. We live together right now, and I got prompted, by God. I was just go make the video right now. And I was like, okay, thank you, because this is an awesome discussion. Because there's only one way we can do it. A lot of times we get told false things, and it's not people's fault if it's not, right? We don't know what we don't know. We can't be held accountable for what we don't know, but you can't tell somebody to lift their chin and have good posture mechanically through the body, but it starts at the feet and throughout the whole body. We have to have context on everything plays into everything else. Everything has a role to play in the body, and so we can't try to address the position of the skull by only looking at the position of the skull. We have to look at the whole body throughout, and we do that. We give deep context, so much free information under what I call the gift of video. Always that will be the case under In the Image Clothing Company, okay? And truly, it is clothing, the only thing physically placed on us. We talk about the right-handed world just because 85%, give or take, of human beings are right-handed. And just daily life things, chairs and man-made things that are just altering our bodies. And if there's so much more that we do, but it starts at the feet. And the importance of zero drop shoes, the term, a video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, the height of a gripped arch, another video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Yeah. Right, it's the whole body, and we discuss it in depth. I'm here for my lifetime as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. But here's good context, because this would be the only video we ever need on this to understand the positioning that's happening up here, but then context throughout what can be altering this, the position of our skull coming from anywhere in the body, all the way down to our feet and fingertips. That's what we give the insights of, okay, deeper in other places like fingernails, toenails, and the importance of them. And I won't mention more in this, but just know that we know what we're talking about here. just for the sake of, that's why we're here, is to help, okay? And it truly does apply universally because we're universal. There's a universal human design. Amputation, deformity, birth defect, major surgery, whatever it is that's altered your body or that sets you apart slightly or maybe quite a bit, that's one thing, but we still are all only dealing with Earth's gravity, its center line, and then there's still just a center line to the universal human design, even if yours is slightly different or quite a bit different. You know, we have to get as close as we can back to the only design of the body in the image of Jesus Christ. Okay, so that's what we do on another fourth of In the Image Clothing Company, In the Image Clothing Company podcast. We have deep discussions on the truth of all things, the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're all human beings, the same thing like I've been discussing here, placed on the same earth. We have one God. We discuss him as he says that he is. So we don't do that perfect, but he is perfect. Okay, episode 173 is what we're on as of today's date of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And then In the Image Clothing Company music, I do a lot with showing the sizing and setup of guitar to not alter the neutral wrist. We talk about fingernails and the importance, the rounding in our hands correlating with the arches in our feet. I call them hand arches, as well as feet arches, right? A lot of music gets made around the gospel of Jesus Christ with the messages, metronome madness. I do freestyling, rhythm and poetry, lyricism type off the top stuff, okay? Freestyles. I do a lot through freestyle. In a lot of ways. That's really how I approach things the most authentically. Well, that kind of makes sense, but for me it just works the best as well, you know, as just being authentic, because there's no script if there's no script. And so it's just you going, trying to have the Spirit of God speak through you in the times when, yeah, you know, we take our hands off of things. Like I'm saying, it's always on the back end. We unrestrict the body, how would it work? We didn't domesticate dogs, how would they work? See what I mean? Things like this. So thank you. This goes for dogs as well, though. Just the position of their neutral spine and then a collar placed on them. The dog's actually looking up when its head is down, like sniffing the ground, if there's a collar curving the neck, hanging on it. If you can see how that translates directly over to dogs, that's why, right? One of the reasons, and yeah, we have In the Image Clothing Company poodles as one of our fourths under In the Image Clothing Company, is because we can discuss dogs the same way we can discuss human beings. Just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. There's only one way that the dogs could ever work as well. Okay, collars, leashes, harnesses, things imbalanced. We talk about so much with dogs. Events here in the state of Utah, poodle parade events. We'll do a lot, and we do a lot. I'm giving a little bit of less context on the other four sides. Well, no, the other three sides to the four that we have of In the Image Clothing Company in videos lately. I think that might be how it will be, at least for a time, or just going forth. So check out what we do if you'd like, because we do all that we can to only speak truth. There's only truth, and we're just trying to get down to it as human beings because it's there, and it is Jesus Christ. Okay, so thank you. Today is the 1st of November, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Just remember, don't believe me, you know? Don't believe the physical therapist. Don't believe the chiropractors. Don't believe anybody telling you how your body works. But we all have one. And let's get down to how it really does. And we really do that here, okay? I discuss things so deeply to the point that there is no possible dispute, to the point that there's no possible, should I listen to what this guy says? Not that I could always just be entirely correct about everything, but if we took our hands off, if we didn't have a say, how would things just be? That's the body. That's where we get to when we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company what we do with free modifications and where clothing sits, right? Modifications in clothing, and just lifestyle, positioning things. The whole point is neutral, okay? The whole point is center line of the body. The whole point is center line of Earth's gravity and keeping the body working as a whole. Everything has a role to play. You can't drag around dead weight, and it can only work all together, Okay. So I don't want to cut it premature. I know I said that I'm not saying as much in this, and that's kind of why it feels like maybe there's something I haven't said, but just know we're here doing a lot of big things. I'm in this for life. You can be on any part of the earth ever, and this applies to you. So stick around for the poodles. Thank you. Purebred standard poodles. Check it out. Poodle Parade events. Bring your poodles, purebred of any size or mixed poodles of any size. But we do a lot more than just that. So thank you.